6:30. Say all right now, Chad. All right now. Give me 2 threes now. Oh, you weren't saying it with enough enthusiasm. You got to do it like the contestants on Price is Right. Oh, mighty clock lady, give me 2 threes. All right now. Stalling with all that goofiness just so Chad can have 2 threes. That's right now. Gotta have 2 threes. Well, you're lucky I decided to clean off the windshield of the windshield wiper mark. Otherwise, it would have been gone 5 minutes ago. But I thought, no, I can't. The windshield wiper mark looks tacky. So, now you got a nice clean windshield to look through. And Chad got 2 threes. Well, we're going to listen to more funny songs. Hint, hint, hint. But as you got to hear yesterday, or in the last video, whenever it is that you watched it, we're going to be hearing some interview with Murray the K, who was a disc jockey in New York back when the Beatles first came on the scene and became associated with them. He'll talk about that, so I'm not going to talk too much about it. I played the beginning of the interview at the end of the video yesterday just as a teaser, so I'll start it all over so you can hear the whole thing. I have to switch CDs in the first few minutes of it anyway. But I was looking to see if Murray the K was still with us and found out that no, he left us a long time ago. As a matter of fact, this interview with him was done. Thank you, Chad. This interview with him was done just 4 years and 3 months before he died. This interview is from November 13th, 1977, and he died on February 14th, 1982. Is that right? Yeah. He had just celebrated his 60th birthday a week before he died, so that sucks. He was 60 years old, born February 14th, 1922. So if he were alive today, he'd be 98 years old, pushing 100. But unfortunately, life didn't have that in store for him. So let's just enjoy him back when he was a spry, oh, how old would he have been? 55? Yeah. 55, almost 56. As he and Dr. Domino discussed the Beatles and the Broadway show Beatlemania. This was long before, or not long before, but a while before cover and tribute bands became all the rage. This was only a few months after Elvis died, and I think Elvis was probably the first one to be the subject of a tribute show. And the Beatles came along. Actually, so I guess, no, the Beatles were the first ones, probably. And then Elvis, his tribute shows came along shortly after his death in 1977. Have I confused you enough? Too bad. All right, let me get up here on the freeway and I'll start the interview. They're going to be playing some songs from the soundtrack of the Broadway show Beatlemania, which sounds a lot like the original Beatles. So I hope I don't have any trouble with YouTube saying, no, you can't play that on here, that's the Beatles. It's not the Beatles. It's an incredible simulation, all right?
Okay, America, get ready for the invasion.
Hello, everybody. This is the Beatles. I'm Murray the K's Swinging Swarry Show.
And right here in the studios of KMET with me is Murray the Kaufman. Murray the K, Murray Kaufman, live in the studio with me. Say hello to the folks in Dementia.
I certainly will there. How's everybody in Dementia? And I'm very happy to be with Dr. Demento. My name is Murray the K, and it used to be known as Miyasuri the Kiyase.
What language is that?
It's a language called Miyasuri, which actually started out of and ripped off from an old Carney language. It's the EUS, which you put on. It's EUS, which follows the first consonant, a group of consonants of a word. Or if your word is and you put the ES in front of your name because it always precedes vowels. So it's Iazan.
So the name Dr. Demento would be?
Diazocta Diazamento.
Okay. Murray the K, you are known far and wide as the fifth Beatle.
I'm still trying to live it down.
How did you get that name?
Well, actually, it was at a press conference, and I was traveling with the guys. It was one of those things that I never wanted to meet the Beatles because I was on vacation at the time, having done very well and it was my Christmas shows. I used to have shows in New York 4 times a year at the Brooklyn Fox Theater, and we do 6 shows a day for 10 to 12 straight days. When you get through with a show like that, you are wiped out. And I remember going to Florida, getting a call from my program director telling me the Beatles are going to be landing. And I said, fine, get yourself an exterminator because I'm on vacation, Jim. He said, no, you're coming back. And he brought me back because it seemed that my station was going to be the only station in New York who was going to broadcast the arrival of the Beatles live. And I went out there. We started a conversation. They invited me over to the Plaza Hotel. I went into the Plaza Hotel, and as the story goes, I never left. It was just one of those things that they wanted to get around town and didn't know where to go. And they had heard about me, mostly from all the acts that played the theaters with me, and had been on my radio show, but mostly in the stage show. So when they toured with the Beatles, they told the Beatles about my show. They used to play some of the original cast albums for them. So at least they felt they had somebody who they knew of anyhow, and we hit it off. And one day in Washington, when we were appearing there, and they had a press conference, and the Beatles were putting their press on as they usually do, somebody said, who's that fellow that keeps, traveling around with you guys? And Ringo says, don't you know? And he turned to George and says, George, that chap doesn't know who that is. And says, George says, sure. He says, that's the fifth Beatle. And of course, in those days, the press was really square. We didn't have LA Free Press or the Village Voice or any of the good rock writers that write today. And they were all establishment, and they wrote it up. My station picked it up, and while I was traveling with them, they were, Billy, you're going to hear soon from Murray the K, the fifth Beatle, along with the Beatles. And then Tom Wolfe got very hip. He was in New York, and this was his first opportunity. He wrote this great big 18-page, full of picture articles for New York Magazine, which then turned into his book, Peppermint Tangerine Flakes, called The Fifth Beatle. That was Tom Wolfe's first book, and it was about me, and then it just stuck. And when I traveled with them in England, they were billing me there as that, and it was something which I really didn't like. It was a selfish reason, because I had already established myself before the Beatles, and having this close association, man, it was a drag, because silently I used to pray, hey, come on back, don't tell anybody, we'll go out and have a good time. But every time the Beatles came back into town, they were expecting everybody, my audience was expecting me to be with them and doing the interviews and all that stuff. And pretty soon, because of the international exposure that I had because of them and because they had become monsters beyond anything in the history of show business, I kind of felt that, hell, I was not my own man anymore. A lot of my popularity depended on how close I kept my ties with the Beatles. So in a way it was a drag, and the other way it enabled me to be able to be involved in things like I'm here for, like Beatlemania.
Yeah, we'll talk more about Beatlemania in just a moment.
Right now, stop the tape, stop the tape, stop the tape, stop the tape.
All right. If you listen to the first part of the funny songs show we're listening to, you'll know that that was me breaking in on the cassette tape, telling the listener to stop the tape so that the leader tape wouldn't break and roll up inside the cassette and cause you to have to break the tape open to fix it and make a big mess. And it's also the opportunity that I need to switch CDs. But I saw a sign back there saying that the 3 left lanes are closed at Imperial Highway, which is coming up here pretty soon. So I think we're going to wait until I find out what that's all about. If that sign is still valid, or if it's from last night construction or what, I don't know. Imperial Highway, yes, the same Imperial Highway that Randy Newman sings about in his song I Love LA. I think it's the first thing he says in the song. Rolling down Imperial Highway, a big nasty redhead at his side. Well, we're about to pass Imperial Highway in just a couple of minutes here. I hope there's no backup. Cutting off the 3 left lanes is gonna be quite a squeeze up here, if it's true. They're doing night construction on this side of the freeway just about every night. So I'm hoping that that sign was just left over from last night and they haven't changed it yet. Most of these electronic signs on the freeway now are saying, wash your hands, stop COVID-19. But that one still says 3 left lanes closed. See, here's another one. See the electronic sign up here on the right? Probably can't read it. But yeah, it says, avoid travel, stay at home, beat COVID-19. All right, 1.25 miles to go to find out what's going on up here. See, 1, 2, 3. I'm going to still have to get over one more lane, I think, if it's all still closed. Well, 3/4 of a mile, and we're still moving pretty good. Here's Imperial Highway, and I don't see any lanes closed, so I think we're in the clear. Just got to get up and over this hill here. Find out. Nope. So I'm going back over here where I like to be. And we'll continue with the show.
To Beatlemania with a record called The Invasion.
We interrupt this record for a special announcement. It seems there's been an invasion at the local airport.
Mama said there'll be days like this, there'll be days like this, Mama said.
We take you now to the local airport where a foreign object has just landed.
Yeah, this is Nutley at the local airport. Thousands of teenagers have gathered
gathered to get a closer look at the invaders. We're standing at the foot of the plane. The door is opening. There they are.
Are you the ones that invaded the country? Jamming the airwaves day and night?
Stealing the hearts of American girls? And what do you have to say for yourselves? We're being invaded by four mobs! Don't just stand there! Call the silly defense department! What's the number?
This is the voice of civil defense. Civilians are urged to take cover. Military personnel are directed to report immediately. The invaders are armed with 33s and 45s and all have records. Teenagers, we beg you, don't stop, don't look, don't listen.
Mrs. Bunkley, walking through the crowd. Young lady, what have you done to protect yourself?
What did you say?
I said, what have you done to protect yourself from the invaders?
You'll have to speak up. I got deep inside.
But what would you do if a mob swept you off your feet?
And kissing, and squeezing, and loving.
And your boyfriend here, what do you have to say? You're off to join the army. I'm off to join the circus. We're off to join Nutley with the four mops. Mops, you're sweeping the country. Barber shops are closing. Band clubs are breaking up. Singers are turning in their gold records. How do you like that?
Hey, Dingo, come here. Confidentially, between us guys, what do you expect to find here that you haven't got at home? Does that mean you plan to take over the whole country?
America! This is the end!
America, this is not the end. For future developments, stay tuned to this station.
Oh, those crazy days. That's Buchanan and Greenfield with the invasion on the Dr. Demento show on KMET, where we're here with Murray the K, and we'll be talking about Beatlemania, old and new, as we continue in just a moment or so.
2.5-hour extravaganza of sight and sound, an entire evening with Queen. Queen returns to Southern California with one of the most astounding audio-visual concerts in rock and roll.
Mamma mia, mamma mia, mamma mia, let me go.
Tuesday, December 20th at the Lounge Arena, and Thursday, December 22nd at the Fabulous Forum.
Okay, and here's Murray the K with a word to the wise from KMET.
If you're looking to be a Kiazar, I mean buy a car, the federal government has a little guide to gas mileage for the new 78s. The booklet is free for the asking, and KMET has the address. Write Fuel Economy, Pueblo, Colorado, and the zip is Eazane, Weazon, Eazo, Neazon, if you got it.
Fantastic.
No, I'm going to lower this because that is the Beatles singing in German. It'll be just my luck that YouTube's computers speak German and realize what I'm playing there. Hope I didn't play enough already to screw everything up. La 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 la. I think Dr. Demento played the whole song, so it might be a moment before we get back to the interview. In the meantime, enjoy the drive. Philippe Dick, yeah. What? What'd he say? What'd he say? I'm sorry, I don't know what that means. Hey! Watch out for that truck! Yeah.
Dear Casey, if you're wondering what it is that I'm writing about, I'll tell you. I hugged my favorite Beatle, George Harrison. On August 19th, the night of the Beatle performance at the Count Palace in San Francisco, 2 of my friends came along with me. Naturally, when I saw George walk on stage, I screamed my heart out. When he sang, I knew that I had to touch him. When they announced their last song, I nudged Eric, the boy that I was with, and told him that I was going outside to try and find the limousines that they'd leave in. He said that he'd come with me. We ran outside and found that other people had the same idea. The crowd was so big, I lost Eric. I started to run all around looking for him, but I couldn't find him. Finally, I reached a part behind the Cow Palace where nobody was, and I decided to turn back. As I started to leave, I thought that I saw something behind the bushes. I looked, and I saw the limousines parked close together. A fence was separating the limousines from me. Without thinking, I climbed the fence and approached the 2 cars. They were very well hidden from the public eye, and my heart skipped a beat when I figured they were the same limousines that the Beatles would leave in. Something caught my eye. I looked up and saw George and Paul walking together, behind them Ringo and John. George and Paul were talking with a couple of guards and laughing. They didn't see me. Before I knew what was happening, I was running to George. I caught him and I hugged him. Boy, I sure did cling. He was taken by surprise, and when he realized what was happening, he smiled at me and said, "Hi, Bert." Tears were running down my cheeks, and I clung hard. Couldn't say a word. Paul stood there and stared with a grin. Ringo passed and looked at me with his mouth open. John passed and just glanced at me for a second. John and Ringo, followed by a couple of men, climbed in one limousine and left. The guards were trying to pull me away while George grinned and Paul stared. Finally, when they pulled us apart, Paul opened the door for George and they both climbed into the car. When they were both in the car, I broke away from the guards and I ran and touched the door handle that Paul had touched. Paul and George both turned around and waved to me with big grins on their faces. I walked in a daze back to where Eric was. Eric came up to me and asked me where I was. Lynette, the other girl with us, saw the tears in my eyes, noticed that I was breathing hard, and saw that my eyes were wandering. I muttered that I'd hugged George. She nearly fainted right then. Eric asked me a bunch of questions, but I kept muttering that I hugged George. When I calmed down, Lynette and Eric asked question after question. My dad laughed when I told him. My mom touched my hand. My girlfriends were and are very envious. One thing that I'll always remember is the way George said, "Hi, Bert." It was so romantic, and he was so handsome. Well, Casey, thanks for reading this. See you later.
Let me take you down, 'cause I'm going to strawberry fields. Nothing is real, nothing to get home about. Strawberry fields forever.
All right. That's very nice. I think I've heard that group before, or have I?
No, not really. Unless, yes, you've just heard him, and that's the group called Beatlemania.
And this is Murray the K, and tell us about Beatlemania.
All right. Beatlemania is going to wipe L.A. away, and by that I mean a ball. You know, we opened in Boston.
It already did that. I mean, it did that back in 1964. I mean, it's happening all over again now, though.
But I'm talking about the show now.
This Beatlemania is a show, yes, indeed.
It's on Broadway. It's been there since May, and we've played to standing room only crowds for every night, and every single performance we've had a standing ovation. And when you see it here in LA, incidentally, it opens at the Schubert Theater on the 13th of January. Tickets are on sale now, I think, at Ticketron and wherever that may be. And we are bringing to Los Angeles something which I first thought, the first thing that went through my mind was rip-off, because I've heard of Beatle Fest and Beatle conventions and all that kind of stuff, which didn't make too much sense to me. And after about 3.5 weeks of listening to these fellas and then meeting with Jules Fisher, who produced, who was the creative guy for Hair and Jesus Christ Superstar and Godspell, and him putting layers upon layers of 64,000 different impressions to accompany this live music, live singing, live performance. There's no lip syncing or anything else. It's just a bombard of multimedia happenings of the 60s as the Beatles affected the 60s and as the 60s affected the Beatles. And there is a show, as I said, it's coming to the Schubert Theater, in which you will not believe your eyes. The guy who plays the guitar, the bass guitar, is the absolute spitting image of Paul McCartney. It isn't like he looks a little like him. There is no difference in their looks. During the second act, there's Joe Pecorino, who plays rhythm guitar, or Lennon is about as Lennon-esque as they've ever been. The most important thing about this show, in addition for it to become a personal experience for you, which it really is the fact that the Beatles, even though you did see them, if you ever saw them in person, you never heard them. As close as I was, you never heard them, not only because of the absolute pandemonium that broke loose and the hysteria and the screaming, and the bad acoustics and everything, and mostly being in large arenas, but from the time that 1966 came along, they started doing their albums, Rubber Soul, Revolver, Sgt. Pepper, White Album. The Beatles never performed, pardon me, any of those tunes live. And to see that performed before your eyes, and by the time they get to that era, you're no longer thinking, hey, these guys look and sound like them. You really think that you're watching them. And it's going to be an exciting event for LA, because I really think that LA, of all the cities that it could play, probably be more excited about this show than any other town.
Well, I'm certainly looking forward to it. It's a show so good, I guess they're moving the chorus line out to make way for it.
Yeah, it seems that way.
At the Schubert Theater, of course. We heard a couple of Beatle novelties there. Casey Kasem did that very moving letter from Elena, that going back to the days, of course, of the first Beatlemania. We are now in the days of the second Beatlemania. And before that, the boys themselves and Sie liebt dich, the German version of She Loves You. Have you ever seen this record before, Murray the K, this record cover?
No, tell you the truth. That's, must be an item. Tell me about it.
It's one of the Beatle novelties from my collection. Why don't you read aloud the notes from on the back? The notes on the back.
It say that talent is a priceless gift, a gift the established performer spots and appreciates. In Brad, and I imagine they mean Brad Berwick, who's on the front of this thing, we have a young and exciting budding star of 17 with a fresh and vital musical ability that sings and plays the piano with vigor and deserved. That's his verb, baby. A phrasing and style that is decidedly, distinctively seasoned as a co-star he is with Robert Young in the TV series Window on Main Street. Destines Brad Berwick to future stardom. So says Jane Mansfield.
As the name of the song that Brad Berwick is going to sing, this very straight-looking, somewhat acne young fellow on the front cover of this record, he's going to sing,
I'm better than the Beatles.
You better believe it. Jane Mansfield said so. Here's the record. Berwick, and I'm better than the Beatles. Do you have any comments on that, Murray?
Sick, sick, sick.
Okay, we'll return to Beatlemania, old and new, in just a moment, here on KMET, the Dr. Demento Show. The group from Beatlemania, the show Beatlemania. Murray the K, what's your connection with that show? Are you in it?
Only on the screen at times. But my title on the playbill says Special Consultant and Associate Producer, Murray the K.
Okay. Tell me some of the other things. Tell me more about Murray the K, formerly Murray Kaufman, or still Murray Kaufman.
No, formerly Murray Kaufman. I'll tell you a little about me. I came out to California to plug this, but I also am going to be doing a motion picture called I'm Gonna Hold Your Hand.
Oh.
Guess who that's about? And that we're doing over at Universal. And when I leave here, I go back to New York just until Thanksgiving because they'll be able to see the Beatles perform on, I'm sure you get it out. You get the Thanksgiving Day Macy's parade up from New York. Does that
I think
play
so.
out here? Yeah. And they'll be in that parade, and I'll have to go back to that, and then come back here, and then I'm going to film a week of my scenes from the Universal picture I want to hold your hand. And I play the part of Murray the K, which I think is typecasting, but I think I can do it. And so I've been very busy with that. I'm going to be doing a TV special, which celebrates my 25th anniversary in radio, and also some of the people that I helped start in this business. I'm going to be in the show, I'm going to televise it, and then I'm going to do it at Radio City Music Hall. So I've been pretty busy, and I've been doing a lot of lecturing. They tell me as you get older, see, you're a disc jockey up until a certain age, and then when you reach that age, you become, if you do lectures, a musicologist. Can you dig that?
Yes, indeed. I wear both hats.
Oh, great. And I think that in my demented way, Doctor, I have sort of reached an idea of why our music has been the way it's been for 60 years and the cycles that we've gone through. And I like to stick to facts rather than, Paul is really dead, and if you play this record backwards, it really says this, all these other crazy rumors that started. So whenever you want me to, I'll just lay that rap on you about all the cycles of music, unless you think it would put you to sleep.
Oh, I don't think so at all. We'll do that in just a few minutes.
We're going to do that in just a few minutes.
Wanted to ask you one other thing so people get a little more idea. Perhaps people I'm sure people listening to me who have never been in New York City.
Right.
Where Murray the K has been a disc jockey for how many years?
25.
What stations?
Well, my...
and what sort of style? What kind of stations? What format is it?
It was always rock up until 66. The major station where I became Murray the K and had my success was 1010 Winds, New York. It's called Winds, W-I-N-S. And then after travel, I quit there in 65, traveled with Beatles in 66. In 66, when I had felt the music had far surpassed the presentation on radio, we started what then became progressive radio. It was the first FM station to go into that concept, and it was WOR-FM, which is now known as 99X in New York. And that was doing fine until Drake Chenault came along and screwed up that one.
What sort of things were you playing on this station in 66? What did you consider progressive at that point?
Frank Zappa,
all right.
Phil Oakes, Buffy St. Marie. I found a guy by the name of Richie Havens that nobody had ever heard of. That we Janice, we played Society's Child a year before it was banned on every other station, and you can tell you what people's heads were that you would ban a record like that. And everything from, of course, I think I got a big write-up over the fact that I was the first one to play a 17-minute record. I played Sad-Eyed Lady of the Lowlands in its entirety, which in those days was a big thing. And we used to play 21-minute cuts and stuff like that.
This was a real jump from what you did before.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, the kind of spirit that's on the opening that we heard at the beginning of our little talk together.
Right. I used to do a lot of gimmick stuff, and
you were top 40, straight ahead, high speed.
No, I never stuck to a top 40. I wouldn't do that. I mean, even ever. I mean,
not at that time.
No, not top 200 maybe. Yeah. And I used to play a lot of new stuff, and I liked to do mixes in those days. And when I went to ORFM, I mean, it really was progressive. Nobody told me what to play, and I had enough respect from the general manager of the station to say, go ahead and do it. And so we put together a lot of things. We introduced New York to Jefferson Airplane back in the beginning of 66, and records that normally would never get AM airplay. A lot of Phil Oakes stuff at the time that Phil was trying to be heard. And that was the kind of stuff we played then.
Yeah, and I'm sure you've got some very interesting ideas about all the changes, all the troubled waters that have flown under the bridge since then. And we'll be talking about those with Murray the K in just a moment here on the Dr. Demento Show on KMET. But first, back to our friends, the Fab Four, or rather to a song about the Fab Four, the most requested of all the Beatle novelties here on the Dr. Demento Show with the late, the great Alan Sherman.
My daughter needs a new phonograph. She wore out all the needles. Besides, I broke the old one in half. I hate the Beatles. She says they have a Liverpool beat. She says they used to play there. Four nice kids from off of the street. Why didn't they stay there? What is all the screaming about? Fainting and swooning. Sounds to me like their guitars could use a little tuning. The boys are from the British Empire. The British think they're keen. If that is what the British desire, God save the Queen. No daughter of mine can push me around. in my house, I'm the master. But when the Beatles came into town, gad, what a disaster. Little girls in sneakers and jeans destroyed the territory. 'Twas like some of the gorier scenes from West Side Story. Of course my daughter had to go there. The tickets are cheap, she hollers. I was able to pick up a pair for $47. When the Beatles come on the stage, they scream and shriek and cheer them. Now I know why they're such a rage. It's impossible to hear them. Ringo is the one with the drum, the others all play with them. It shows you what a boy can become without a sense of rhythm. There's Beatle books and t-shirts and rings and one thing and another. To buy my daughter all of these things, I had to sell her brother. Back in 1776, we fought the British then, folks. Parents of America, it's time to do it again, folks. When they come back, here's how we'll begin. We'll throw them in Boston Harbor. But please, before we toss them all in, let's take them to a barber.
Pop makes the Beatles, inspired by the first wave of Beatlemania. And we'll return to Murray the K, a little more talk about the second wave of Beatlemania and all the waves of music that have come down the river in just a moment here on the Dr. Demento Show on KMET.
Sounds like it's one of those spots where the tape was running out, and I had the foresight to just let the tape play out so that I could start fresh on the second side. So I don't know what this is all going to be, but eventually the show will come back. Right now I'm saying something, I can't hear it because it was so badly recorded. I think I said something about the side was coming to an end in 3 minutes, which tells me I probably just let it run all the way to the end.
Turning Point Cinema in Westwood. And this is Dr. Demento, and in just a moment we'll be returning to Murray the K.
There is not an Aerosmith concert for November 30th. Tickets can be refunded at place of purchase or mail tickets directly to Ticketron, 5151 West Imperial Highway, Inglewood, California, 90304. Attention, Aerosmith refund. Spokesperson for Wolf Miller Concerts has further stated that under no circumstances will a third concert be scheduled for Aerosmith.
Dr. Demento here on KMET with Murray the K, who is coming to town to tell us about Beatlemania, the show coming to the Schubert in January, and some other things. Murray?
Yes, sir. B.S.C. I'll tell you something. For those people who listen to you and, get off on all the crazy records that you lay down for, Beatles, anything to do with the Beatles, the real Beatles. And we've got that for you, and we hope that, I want to tell everybody that comes to that show, and the first week that it opens, I'll be here. I'll be standing in the lobby. If you buy a ticket for the show, for example, and you come out during intermission, and if you don't think it's really the greatest rock musical you have ever seen, and you don't think it's it, I'm going to personally be there, lead you over to the box office and get you your money back. Then I'll send you home because you can't see the second act, but if you don't like it, you're not going to get stuck or ripped off. We were talking, or I was about to talk. Is this the time?
Yes.
Okay.
Before we were so rudely interrupted.
Oh, yes, okay. We were talking about cycles of music, and we mentioned before all the rumors about Beatles and things like that, and I don't really like to deal with that. I like to deal with realities. And some of the things that I noticed, particularly how the Beatles changed things around. For some reason, we have had, over the past 60 years, cycles of 9 years. And I say 9 is the largest number and the largest wave and all that stuff. But I'm not a numerologist. It's just the facts, and the facts started to say, if you go back to 1936, Benny Goodman came along. He was the superstar. It always seems that it is a superstar who starts an era. An era doesn't come along first and create a superstar. The superstar creates the era. Benny Goodman came along. There was a new thing called swing, and he created the era of the big bands. Exactly 9 years later, after that, in 1945, along comes a young guy, skinny as hell, by the name of Frank Sinatra, and he started the era of the vocalists. So you had Sinatra, who brought about, the Patti Pages and the Perry Comos and what have you. And he went good for 9 years until a kid by the name of Elvis Presley came along, and Bill Haley. And 1954 was really the start of rock and roll. And then 9 years later, along comes the Beatles. And the one thing that I guess everybody can notice in history, that music is really an input-output. Music never gives the answers to anything. It sort of reflects the times. And it seems that every time we go into an era, it is preceded by a national catastrophe or a national preoccupation. For example, the thing that preceded the Benny Goodman swing big band era was the nation coming out of the worst depression it was ever in. In 1945, up until this present date, that was the year that more babies were born in the United States, and you can check your almanac right now. And more babies were born in the United States than at any other time in the history of our country. It was the end of World War II, the romance was there, Sinatra was right. And then in 1954, television came, and most families all over the world, all over our nation anyhow, had TV sets. They were able to, the kids were able to watch television, their parents' pictures and their movies, and really reject. And also the one thing that also contributed to that in the country was the Army McCarthy hearings, which sort of split the country apart, and the McCarthy era. And then that started a new wave, because up until that time, Benny Goodman and Frank Sinatra would take ballads and do it their ways. Here, Elvis and Bill Haley came along, and they were doing teenage music by teenagers for teenagers. And then came the assassination of President Kennedy, and immediately that was the national catastrophe then. And that was in right, and then immediately came the Beatles. And then when the Beatles broke up, but not really. I mean, they broke up, but we still had Paul McCartney doing his thing, and Harrison and John and Yoko and Ringo all making albums on their own. We had Vietnam and Watergate, and you can't exactly dance to it, and something you don't want to think about too much. It was a bummer. And it also was a bad era, because the 60s, that's why people love this show, because people can relate. You go through your own personal experience. You see all the things that happened in the 60s, like we have Bridget Bardot turns 30. Peter Sellers suffers a heart attack on his honeymoon. Lenny Bruce beats obscenity rap in Illinois. Star Trek #1 on television. Dustin Hoffman, The Graduate. Hair opens. Broadway is liberated. All these signs that keep coming by. And that was a time when music, as far as music was concerned, it was fusion. Rock was getting into, the rock artists were getting into folk, and folk were into rock. Peter, Paul, and Mary actually sang I Dig Rock and Roll Music, and those kind of things were happening. But the 70s turned out to be a bummer. Even the black artists, who in the 50s were ripped off, they would make a hit record, and some big label would come along, and a white artist would cover it, and then they would have the hit because they had the money behind it to push it. And the 60s saw the black artists emerge in their own right as superstars and hits. And then when the 70s came about, for some reason, we had polarization again. They went off and started black radio, black music, black news. We went off, and those people who like Kiss, they're in their corner. Those people who dig Aerosmith, they're in theirs. And we're not together anymore. And so people like to reflect back on a time when at least the country felt that we were really getting together, and it was a very exciting time.
So
are you asleep?
Nope, not at all.
Okay,
That's,
all right.
I find certainly a lot of truth in that. So look out, 1981. That's the next 9-year cycle.
Well, I would think so, since we didn't have one in 72. But who knows what's going to happen. If I knew, I'd probably be there signing them up, ready to do another show.
Oh, by all means. Murray the K, thank you so much for coming by. And reminder once more, Beatlemania in January. Let's go back to 1963. Just before the Beatles conquered America, they just had a few records out here and they hadn't been hits yet, but they'd already conquered England. And in 1963, they made the first of what was to be an annual series of Christmas presents to their fans in England. These were little records they sent out to all their paid-up members of their English fan club. We're going to play one of them every week from now until Christmas here on the Dr. Demento Show. Here's the very first one.
Well, a little early for that, but there you go. All right, I'll be back in a little bit. I gotta go see what, if anything, they have left inside Walmart. Oh, look, Chad, there's a 3. All right, now, 3. Hey, how about that? You got another 3, Chad. All right, now, a 3, 753. You gone for a long time, Danny D. Yes, I was. I managed to get a couple gallons of water and another 6-pack of toilet paper. Oh boy. Never thought the day would come when I'd be excited about that. They're still limiting people to 1 package in there, but they're mega rolls. So if I can keep buying 1 roll every time I stop at a store, or 1 package, I should say, I should be doing pretty good before long. You don't need to buy 10,000 rolls all at once. Just buy 1. Get you by for a couple days. Then go back to the store again. Get yourself another one. And eventually you'll have plenty. What else did I get? I got cat treats. I'm running out of cat treats. Cat litter. You never have enough cat litter. And dish soap, something that my grocery store didn't have, was dish soap yesterday, so I got some of that. Stuff is slowly creeping back onto the shelves. All right, let's go back to Dr. Domeno, shall we?
Dr. Demento Show on KMET. That's Rolf Harris and Ringo for President. And that's an hour worth of tribute to the Beatles. And I want to thank, of course, Norm Katuna and Mike Saito, who provided some of the records that we heard, and Damascus Holodan, who helped me put it together and had some mighty fine ideas for the tribute to Beatlemania. And, of course, Murray the K, who dropped by to tell us about Beatlemania, old and new, here on the Dr. Demento Show. Okay, we're going to spend the next hour in another tribute, a tribute to something that maybe, if it tried real hard, could be as meaningful and contribute as much to our happiness as the Beatles have done. I'm going to salute television. Yes, we're going to have a demented salute to the tube with an hour's worth of records, rare and old mostly, though not the first couple of them. And these are going to be records by and about the famous and infamous people of television. We're going to hear from people like Milton Berle and of the Boston Pops Orchestra and the Three Haircuts with Sid Caesar and Stan Freberg's Television, a little bit of the Monkees, Engineer Bill, and so on and so on. You get the drift of how we're going to spend the next hour here in the land of dementia. We're going to start out, though, with a brand new record, something that I just got the day before yesterday, as a matter of fact. Title song from the new album by Don McLean, which is kind of a modern tribute to television. A little different style of music for the Dr. Demento Show, but it'll kind of be the foil off which you can bounce the rest of the things we'll hear in the next hour. Don McLean, name of this one is Prime Time.
Well, this is life. This is prime time. This is living in the USA. Well, this is life. This is prime time. This is living the American way. I was riding on the subway in the afternoon. I saw some kids beating out a fire band. The lady right in front of me was old and brown. The kids began to push her, they knocked her down. I tried to help her out, but
Sorry, Chad, you missed another 3. Ah, dang it. Yep. Well, that song was ending. It changed to 8:04. Oh well. Better luck next time. I'll be right back. All right. Chad's lucking out. 8:23. All right, I'm getting all kinds of 3s today. Hey, if I get home in time, maybe you'll get 8:33. All right, now hurry up, Danny D. Get going. All right. In fact, I think I'm going to wait to play any more funny songs, hint, hint, till tomorrow. So instead, let's just listen to a regular old song on regular old radio.
Rockin' the Empire, 96.7 KCAL Rock.
I rode her off for the 10th time today.
Yes, I did hit the volume on that at the very end, but that's the way the song ends. I just didn't want to get any portion of another song in there or some stupid station ID. So I just ended it the way it ends on the record. Clever of me, huh? Huh, y'all? How'd you like that? That one song got us all the way home. I hit every green light. And Chad gets a bling, bling, bling at the end. All right, now I got my bling, bling, bling. I got my threes. Sorry, we got here a little too quick, Chad. You're not going to get 2 threes at the end, but you're going to get 1. All right, now I'll settle for 1. I had some other 3s earlier. Now I'm going to have another. Oh, just changed to 8:30, so I better go. You're not going to wait 3 minutes for me, Danny D? No, I'm not, Chad. Been gone from work for 2 hours already, and look at all this. And you've only had to deal with 1 hour and 15 minutes of it. So deuces, peace out, peace tea out, IBC root beer out, 10-4 over and out, 8-3-0 and out. All right, now 3 in the middle. Bye. Click.